I started my professional career with an unpaid internship, then got a 7,000 per month internship, then a 50,000 per month job, and then a 2 lakh per month job. And most of my salary increment came from education. I did my engineering, got a 50,000 job, and after that did my MBA, got a 2 lakh plus job. But my friend who was also in a 50,000 per month job did not do an MBA, and in the 2 years that I graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, he had also increased his salary to 30 LP of CTC. I graduated with a 35 LPA CTC, but that came with 25 lakh of fees and intensive CAT preparation. So my friend also did really well. And when I look back at it, I now realize how I can go forward strategically increasing my salary. And in this video, I will give you the exact points which will help you strategically choose your career and especially the type of work that you can do that can exponentially increase your salary. And I bet after this, you will forever change your mindset towards your job. The first mindset shift that you need to do is stop thinking like an employee and start thinking like a business. Most employees think that their salary is a reward for the work that they are doing. It's not a reward. From the business perspective, you're a cost center. Your salary is a cost which is eating into their profits. So your salary is not a desired outcome for the company. But the company will still pay you that salary, and the reason is your economic value. Suppose you are in a 1 lakh per month job, but the business that you bring for the company is 2 lakh per month. So that difference between the business that you bring in and the salary that you have becomes your economic value. And in consulting roles, it's very easy to understand. For example, I was working in consulting. Suppose my salary is 2 lakh per month. Now the client is being charged 10,000 rupees per hour for my work. So the company is charging 10,000 rupees per hour to the client for my work. And every day, no matter if I used to work for 13, 14 hours, whatever it was, but I used to charge the client for only 8 hours because you can only charge for 8 hours. So 80,000 per day the client is being charged. So in 3 days, if you see, my entire salary has been generated by the company. So on an average in a month, if I work for 2021 days, the company has already got, if I work on a project for 2021 days, the company has already got 7 times my salary. That's the economic value that I generate. And that's the direct cost of being on a project. That's the direct impact of being on a project. There are certain indirect benefits as well. For example, I might contribute for bringing a client to the company. That's also an indirect benefit that I'm giving. That's why the partners in a consulting firm get paid so highly. They get 1 crore salary, but in return of that, they also bring in 100 crores of business for the firm. And now this narrative changes the entire fundamental question that we have to ask. It's not about how can I increase my salary, because no company wants to give you more salary. The fundamental question becomes, how can I increase my economic value? And now this is a question that can be answered and we will deep dive into. And the first way to think about increasing your economic value is, in whichever career or role you are in, think about the scalability and the transaction value. And I'll explain all of this very clearly. First, let's talk about the scalability aspect. Suppose you are a coder. Once you have designed a particular product, now that product can reach millions of customers. Suppose you have designed a feature in, say, Uber, and that particular feature will reach millions of customers. So there is no limit to the scale of customers that you can reach. You are affecting, or you are impacting millions of customers. So that is the first fundamental difference. Now compare it with, say, an office clerk who is there in a particular company. He can serve, say, 100, 150 or maybe 200 employees at maximum, but he cannot suddenly increase it to 2000 employees. So his scale is very limited. I'm not even talking about the transaction value that he generates less value or more value. I'm just talking about the number of people that he can impact. That cannot suddenly increase, that cannot exponentially increase. And that is why, whichever career or role you are in, think about whether in future I can impact more people. Can I increase the scale of my impact? If not, then in that particular role, your salary is not going to increase in future as well. And you can also think about scalability in terms of the same kind of role as well. For example, you are a software engineer or a coder in a service-based company, say TCS or Infosys, versus you are a software engineer or a coder in a product-based company like Google, Microsoft. Where do you think you will have more salary? Obviously in the product-based company, because you can exponentially increase the scale of your work. The same that happened with Sundar Pichai. He worked on Google Chrome, that started getting adopted very quickly. There is no limit to the kind of scale that you can reach if you're directly reaching out to the customers, and that's why you can get paid more as well. The kind of impact that you can create out of work is more. If you're working, say, in a service based company, say TCS makes a product for HUL. Now HUL will sell that product to the different customers. However, it will make a specific contract with TCS, say $5 million contract. Now that your scope of work becomes limited to that $5 million, you cannot suddenly exponentially increase the scale of your work. Yes, as you go higher, you will serve more clients, you will generate deals of higher value. However, the scalability will still be very limited, and that's why more than an office clerk but less than a product based company. And that is how you have to think about scalability. But the scalability is only half the picture. There is another thing that you need to take care of that I mentioned, and it's the transaction value. Now think about an investment banker. That investment banker might be dealing just with one or two clients in a specific quarter, but if that deal materializes, that itself is a multi-million-dollar deal. That one deal is itself enough. You're not selling 1,000 rupees product subscription to millions of customers. You don't need to do that, because one deal itself is enough for you, and that's what we call the transaction value. So the overall metric that you need to see is scalability into the transaction value. Now you can optimize for both of these metrics or either of them, but the overall number that you get, scalability into the transaction value, that should be large. If you just sell one rupee product to millions of customers, then also it's just million rupee in value. If you sell multi-million-dollar deal to one client, that itself generates more value. So that is how you need to think about any career or role that you're going into. Can I do my work once and that can reach to millions of customers, or can I do my work once but that work itself generates a multi-million-dollar value? So that is how you need to think about it. But remember, this is not the only aspect. This is what value you can generate for the company, but it is not always about what value you can generate. It is also about how much can the company lose if you happen to leave them. That is also what determines your salary, and there's a powerful force that determines this, and that is supply and demand. So it ultimately boils down to how irreplaceable you are in your job. And a lot of people get confused that I will predict the supply and demand of skills and accordingly work where there is more demand. But it cannot work this way. If you can predict it, others can also, and they will also start working on it. The supply will increase. Ultimately, it will reach its equilibrium. So predicting about skills, supply and demand of skills and everything is a complete waste. Rather, you need to think about very practical parameters. First of all, if there's a filtering mechanism to learn that skill, suppose an IIM degree, that degree itself has a filtering mechanism. There are limited seats. You have to go through a very stringent filtering mechanism, and that is the positive result, and that is exactly the impact of the IIM degree. It's not about the 2 years of education, honestly. It's the filtering mechanism through which you enter that institution that makes it rare. So if you can pass through some kind of a filtering mechanism to learn that skill, it's great. So top tier IIM degree, top tier IIT degree, very CA rank if you get, a CFA rank if you get, those are very rare skills to have. Those are very rare accolades to have. Not everyone will have it suddenly, and that's why there you can increase your value. However, suppose you don't want to go through that filtering mechanism, what you can also do is increase your market value in the job that you are currently in. And how can you do that? Very simple. Stop working just on company specific tasks, company specific processes, and company specific tools. If you're just doing that, then no matter how important you are for the company, your market value is not increasing, and the company knows it. You will not be hired by other people. Even if you try to switch, you will not be offered a lot of salary, because your skills are very important for the company, but it's not very important for the other companies that are outside on the market. That's why the company will not increase your salary exponentially. Rather, if you work on very generalized skill sets, you know about the entire domain, about the entire industry. Suppose you are working in a fintech firm, say Razorpay, and you are working on very specific tools. So other competitors like Paytm, NPCI and all, they will not hire you. However, if you know about the complete fintech industry, about what your business is doing, about what your company is doing, how the overall processes run, and not just the process for your specific task, then you become very important for the competitors, and now the company knows it. First of all, you can get very good offers from your competitors, and another thing what will happen is, if you go to your competitors, your specific company can also lose value out of you, can also lose their business to its competitors, and that's why you become very important and they will not risk losing you. Another thing that you can also do is, if you are somewhere where you are directly impacting the revenue numbers, then also you are very important for your company, as well as your market value has increased. That's why after MBA, if you see, most of the roles are about sales only. If you're an investment banker, you are selling your client to prospective investors. If you're in product management, you are selling your product to different customers. Sales and marketing, obviously you are selling products. So that's why the reason is very simple. You're doing sales, you are directly impacting the revenue numbers, and that is also where you become very irreplaceable. If you are in a support kind of a role where you can be replaced, if you're in a notice period and someone else can come and learn it. But if you are in a client facing role where you are directly impacting you are managing the client relationship as well, you are directly impacting that revenue number, you become very difficult to replace, and that also increases your market value as well as your importance within the company. So what you need to do is read a lot about the domain, about the industries, read a lot of research reports, and also choose work. Try to take in more work where you can learn these generalized skills rather than just your specific task. Yes, initial years it might take a little bit of hustle, a little bit of more work, but volunteer for taking up such work so that you can increase your market value in the initial stage of your career. And at the same time, very important skill set is you need to learn to say no to certain types of work as well. Very manual operational work that is very company specific, sometimes you need to say no as well. Yes, every time you cannot say no, once or twice you have to pick it up, but every time if it is getting repeated, you have to talk to your manager, you have to talk to your HR and ask them to give a specific type of work to certain kinds of work that you want to do as well. Because if you don't say no, others will, and that mundane task will keep coming back at you, and you will never improve your market value. So that's why you have to talk to your manager very openly, be very clear about the kind of work that you want to do. And if you don't learn to say no, remember, it's a very underrated skill. Definitely you will be pushed back in your company. And there's another way of increasing your value within the company so that such kind of project automatically reaches you. If you are not very good at saying no, then also it might happen that those projects automatically reach you, and for that you have to do three things. First, increase your accountability. Second, increase your visibility. And third, choose the right person that you want to work with. Who you work with is very important as well. So first, accountability. What you need to do is, a lot of people shy away from taking those high accountability projects because if things go wrong, a lot of things can fall on their shoulder. But remember, if things go right, you become very prominent, you become very noticeable as well, and such kind of projects start reaching you because now people know that you are that accountable person who they can bank on. That's why you have to take those projects, at least in the initial part of your career. Don't shy away from taking those high risk projects. Take it, it can really exponentially increase your growth. And after that, the visibility aspect as well. Again, a lot of people, what they do is they do the entire work, however when it comes to presenting it, they shy away from doing it. They are very afraid of it. But you need to learn to present your work, articulate it, have very good communication, present your work in those top leadership sessions. That is when you increase your visibility, and that is also how more work will start reaching you. And finally, who you choose to work with is also very important, because if your manager is not someone who takes those kind of projects, high accountability, high visibility projects, then that thing will not cascade down as well. So you also have to choose that kind of a person who aligns with this mindset. Now suppose you have done everything correctly. You have chosen a role that is highly scalable, has great transaction value. At the same time, you have learned all the industry skills in the company that you're working in so that your market value has increased. But overall, if your industry itself is a slow growth one, then no matter what you do, your salary cannot increase, your economic value specifically cannot increase very fast because your industry itself is growing very slowly. That's why that brings me to the next part that you need to do. You need to choose high value and high growth industries. Now, this is not very simple, honestly. High value, yes, you can predict. For example, in certain cases, like tech industry, someone is working in a tech industry, someone is working in a cement factory. So obviously, the tech industry guy will have higher value, so he will have more economic value. As well as high growth, if you see, suppose you are working on a product which is related to AI versus working in a generic digital product, obviously the person who is working on the AI product will have high growth potential because that is increasing very fast, and we know that in the immediate future that might have higher growth value. So in certain cases, yes, you can predict that this is a high value, this is a high growth industry that you're going in. Sustainability is another aspect which is growing really fast, and we know that more and more sustainability consultants we will need in future because of the overall climate thing and everything. So in certain cases, you can predict about the overall industry and you can go into such roles. However, in most of the cases, it is very difficult as well. For example, in 2010, 2011, People who started working in e-commerce were probably not the smartest people, but in 5-6 years of time, that industry had grown so rapidly that anyone who had started working during that time had great economic value. Now they were being hired with great salaries because they had a certain skill set at that point of time, which had suddenly exploded. That's why you cannot always predict the growth. What you can certainly do is learn a lot of cross functional skills. For example, if I talk about my friends, they are into product management. They know how to build a product, the overall process, how to build a product. Now they have very quickly shifted from different products to AI product roles. They have shifted to AI companies very quick because they had that cross functional skill of managing to build a product. And that is, as soon as the industry shifted, they have shifted very quickly as well because they had that cross functional skill. For a consultant, the skill that they have is problem solving. Now they can take that skill of problem solving to any industry, whichever is growing really fast, they can take it there. So either develop many cross functional skills so that you can rapidly move towards industries that are growing really fast, or try to predict it, try to analyze yourself that okay, this is a specific industry where I want to work, maybe sustainability is something that will grow in future and I want to build a career there, then enter that particular industry. But remember, all of the above points can again fail if the last point does not align in your favor, and that is your skill set should align with the kind of career that you're going to choose. Suppose you are not good with numbers and you decide to get into investment banking or financial modeling roles, you are an absolute disaster. No matter how good the role is, how good the industry is, you are an average employee. So if you're an average employee, either you can be very well replaced by AI, or your economic value will never be as good as the topmost employee. Rather, a topmost person earning, say in a sales and marketing role, that person obviously will be earning a lot more than an average employee in a finance role. That's why your skill sets also need to align with the kind of career or the role that you're choosing. If you're creative, you can get into sales and marketing. If you're good with numbers, you can enter analytics, or you can also enter your finance roles. If you're good at communication, overall stakeholder management, you can enter roles like say consulting, HR. So you that also needs to align with your specific role. So try to understand what are your specific skill sets. Do you like to talk to a lot of people? Do you like to manage a lot of stakeholders, or you like to work as an individual contributor? If as an individual contributor, then finance is better. If you like to work with many people, then consulting, HR is better. If you are very creative but not good with numbers, try to enter more those kind of roles, digital marketing, marketing, sales. And if you are very good with numbers, try to enter more theoretical roles, operations, analytics kind of roles. So you try to understand first what your skill sets align, what you like to do in the long run, and then choose that specific career and that specific role. If you are a topmost performer in any kind of role, you will certainly be earning more than an average performer in other fields. And if you also want to learn what kind of skill sets are required in different kind of roles, say investment banking, consulting, HR roles, sales and marketing, I have a video specifically made for each of these roles. So you can see that on the screen. And if you're interested in learning about any of them, I'll see you there.